Hey there, this is Real Talk Baseball. I'm Carlos Baseball, and with me as always is Will Power. Before we begin our show, I would like to talk about a nonprofit organization called the Compton Advocates. If you guys have anything to donate, just go ahead and click the link below. The link is Compton Advocates, and anything is wanted. You guys can go ahead and volunteer, and you guys can do hours with them. Great organization. Just go ahead and click in the link below. So how's it going, dude?
It's good, man. How's everything for you?
Oh man, it's pretty crazy. You know, California life.
Yeah, I can only imagine, man.
We're not that cold like you are over there in what do you call it?
Pennsylvania.
Yeah, Pennsylvania.
Actually, not that bad, man. Usually, like January, you expect it to be like 15 or a little bit lower, but lately it's been like 40, 45. So I can't complain too bad, you know. It's like long sleeve shirts or hoodies. You don't have to worry about like winter coats or all that stuff right now. So that's kind of cool.
So you can wear your flannels out there for sure. I mean, I'm wearing my flannels here. I don't care.
No one wears flannels over here, man.
Really? What?
Nah, I'm like the lone like flannel wearer over here.
You're like the lone
Once
ranger
in a while,
out there.
you'll see like, you know, a couple people have different styles, but yeah, people don't really care too much about stuff like that over here.
Well, we're going to try to get them into it because once they see our video, they're going to be like, oh, man, these guys wear flannels. Cool.
Trendsetter.
Hey, man, so what's up, man? What about those Cubbies, dude? What do you have to say about them? Is there anything interesting about them? I know there's been a lot of things going wrong, I want to say, because they're trying to get rid of their whole team. Am I right? Or
yeah, it seems like it, man. I guess like you said, you know, earlier, you said ever since like Theo Epstein decided to step down from baseball for a while, the Cubs, they're just I don't know, they're giving up.
That's what it looks like,
playoff
right?
team. They were a playoff team this past season, you know, and I could still see them as a playoff team in you know, the future, the next couple of years. But giving up Darvish, who had still another like 3 or 4 years left on his contract, you still had Kyle Hendricks, who's also a really good starting pitcher. I'm sure they have like a good farm system coming up, you know, and then Chris Bryant and Rizzo and Contreras and Alzolay, like the new pitcher coming up, like they don't look too bad on paper, but I mean, I don't know, man. It's kind of weird to see a team kind of just dismantle like this. Like we saw the Marlins do it a few years ago when Jeter took over, but I guess Jeter had reason to, because, you know, he just wanted to start fresh and make everything like his way since he was the new owner, you know. But now, like, Epstein left, but I mean, he wasn't the owner; he was the president of baseball operations. So, you know, the new guy that takes over as president of baseball operations, whoever that may be, I don't know. I guess he's just going in a different direction. Wants to get rid of some payroll, because Darvish was a pretty heavy contract.
He was
commanding a lot of
what
money.
you just said right now. You just said that Jeter went in and he basically cleaned house, right? And not a lot of general managers do that. Like, I know Theo Epstein left, right? But this new person, whoever that's going to be, or they already have that person, it looks like he's cleaning house. It looks like he's trying to get all his, you know, all these players that were signed by Theo Epstein, the buildup that he did, the World Series championship that they won. You know, it looks like he's trying to break that up and start from scratch. And that's why they traded Drew Darvish, right? That's why they went ahead and got rid of him. And like you said, that big contract, how many years he has left? Like 3 years on that contract?
I want to say it's 3 years, and it was in the mid 20s, that $20 million a year that he was getting. I want to say it was like $23 million a year that he was already promised. So
wow, yeah, that's
a lot of money, man.
That's a lot of money, and it's because of the season that happened last year. So a lot of teams are doing this, and the Cubs are not the only team that's getting rid of their players. We've seen teams that make it to the World Series, like the Rays, for instance, right? They have their team, they make it to the World Series, and then the following year they get rid of players. But they don't get rid of players because they can't afford it. It's more of like they're trying to keep their salary down. They're trying to keep payroll down. And for the Cubs, like what I've been reading about them is that they didn't have revenue. No team had revenue in 2020. So there's that. And then there's the general manager that just left. Theo Epstein just left. They haven't filled a role. And if they have filled a role, we haven't really known who is the general manager. And then not only that, you have players that are reaching certain age. You've been talking about the age 30 and over, right? You're not giving these guys contracts, the big contracts anymore. You're actually just trying to get rid of them. And then new age baseball kicks in too, where you don't sign big contracts, you trade them off. That's what it looks what the 2020 theme. That's what it feels like this year. It feels like
once they get to like I guess like 30 or older, that seems to be kind of like the trend now, where they're getting close to like the end of their contract, and then they trade these guys away to contenders, and try to start their rebuild, which is smart, honestly, in my opinion. The Rays, I understand they lost Charlie Morton to free agency, and they didn't really have anyone to replace that big hole, and they don't have the money to replace that hole. So they're going in the direction where they're just going to clean house and try to get rid of these guys. That's going to be able to give them maybe another championship team in a few years. So giving up Blake Snell, the prospects that they got for him, it's a really good return. I don't know, man. They could have had Blake Snell for another 3 years. Could have had Cubs could have had Darvish for another 3 years. I don't understand why teams would do that unless it's a contract year coming up. You know?
And that's the weird part, where the Cubs had a good team in 2015, 16, 17, up to 20, right? Everybody was together. Everybody was still there. You still have Contreras there. You still have Rizzo. You still have Bryant. Another thing that I've just read about is that Contreras, the Marlins are really looking at him to be their backstop, So I don't think that Contreras has a big contract with the Cubs, and I don't see the big, why they want to get rid of him. I know you mentioned that the Padres, was it the Padres that gave him 2 catchers, or was it?
Caratini and Darvish went to the Cubs. And went to the Padres, and then in return they got Francisco Mejia, I believe, who's a catcher. So they replaced Caratini with Mejia, and I think Mejia is better than Caratini, but that was kind of like part of the deal, because Darvish has his own personal catcher in Caratini. So it was kind of just like, well, if you're going to take Darvish, then you have to take this guy too. It was like a package deal.
Like, you better take him, because else he's not going to pitch well.
Right, exactly. And we've seen that with a lot of pitchers, like Wainwright and Molina. Kershaw and AJ Ellis. There's a lot of pitchers out there, really good starting pitchers, that they're just on the same wavelength as their counterpart, the catcher. So I get it, but if the Cubs really are going to tank their season, just try to cut some payroll and do that massive rebuild, I don't see why not, go ahead and trade Contreras, your starting catcher. I mean, you already let Schwarber go, and to free agency. He was on I think it was an arbitration year. Could have just re-signed him for another year or so with the qualifying offer, but they decided not to. And now Schwarber, who did he sign with?
He signed with the Nationals.
Oh, that's right, the Nationals.
Yeah. So he signed with the Nationals for 1 year. And what you're saying, you still have Rizzo, you still have Bryant, you still have Baez, you still have Kendrick. And do you feel like they're actually going to be a team that's going to get rid of all these players before the season starts?
Well, there's a lot of talk about Chris Bryant, right? He seems to be the next one that's going to be like on the list of guys to go. Like, everyone's been talking about Francisco Lindor, like, oh, the Indians are going to trade Lindor before the season starts. That's 100%, like, no ifs, ands, or buts. And then now it kind of seems like the same thing. Like, people are talking about Chris Bryant also being on the trade block, and Cubs are really trying to move this guy. He's a star third baseman, former MVP, former Rookie of the Year. He can play multiple positions. He can play outfield and third base. So he really has some high value. And even though he hasn't been playing like the MVP caliber player he was in 2016, he's still really good. He's still hitting 280 or higher almost every season with 30 home runs. you know, and he's a really good defensive third baseman also, and a really good defensive left fielder also. So he could really be a huge asset to any team. And Cubs are definitely going to get a big return if they can pull that trade off.
If they can pull that trade off, I think Chris Bryant's going to be. I think he needs a new change of scenery too, man.
I agree.
I feel like he's stuck in Chicago. I mean, I'm not saying anything bad about Chicago. You know, it's just it looks like the team is getting dismantled. It looks like they're going to start from scratch. These players that are there, like, and you know, Rizzo has been there since he started playing baseball, Major League Baseball, right? And he's seeing all this. Do you think that he wants to stay there? Like, I'm pretty sure he's like, you know what, well, trade me off too. Like, you know, I don't want to stay here and rebuild again unless he's not that type of player. He already won his championship. Most Cubs fans, that's what they wanted, right? You know, I have an interesting story about that actually. You know, I went to Las Vegas 2016 in like around January, February. I placed a bet for the Dodgers to win the World Series. The guy that was behind the counter, he actually said, "Oh no, man, the Cubs are going to win it. They're going to win it. They're going to win it. We're going to win 3, 4, 5 World Series." They did win it in 16? They won it in 16, but they haven't gotten close after that. So I know being a Cubs fan, like, it must be frustrating that your team is actually getting rid of all these guys that won it in 16 for you guys. And now to hear that Yu Darvish was the first piece out. Well, actually, no, Theo Epstein was the first piece out because he decided, like, I'm calling it quits. And then Yu Darvish gets traded, and now you're hearing Chris Bryant, and now you're hearing Contreras with the Marlins. So it must suck. And then I'm pretty sure that if they hear Baez, they'll be like, this is it, man. We're gonna have to start rebuild, and it's gonna take another 3, 4, 5 years.
Yeah, you know, a lot of these teams, they like to keep these guys because they put butts in the seats, right?
Yeah.
But there's not that many ticket sales. They're not going to open the gates because of COVID, and they're losing a lot of money because they're not selling tickets. And so I guess I understand where they're coming from, because what's the point of keeping these guys who you usually keep to just sell tickets if you're not going to be able to sell the tickets anyway?
Yeah.
So I completely understand. I don't know how much longer Baez has before he's a free agent. Chris Bryant's coming up on it. He's 6 years in already. So I don't know if he had signed an extension with the Cubs, but I believe he should be coming up on free agency soon. And he's still pretty young, man, 29 years old. Yeah. So he's definitely going to be, he's in his prime right now. He's going to be in his prime at least for the next 2 or 3 years. So any team that trades for him is definitely going to be a force to be reckoned with. And then you got Rizzo, who's a little bit on the older side. I want to say he's 31 or 32 now, but he's still solid, man. So if the Cubs are really trying to start that rebuild, you know, first base, third base, both of those corner infield positions, they're a hot commodity, and they could really get some big talent, you know, trading for these guys. And then Baez, man, that's going to be a hard one, dude, because Cubs fans are going to be so pissed if they get rid of Baez.
Yeah, but I don't think the Cubs will part ways with them, only because, like you said, because of COVID, there's no fans in the stands, and you need to try to get ratings to see the team play. If you don't, I mean, I remember seeing the Cubs back in WGN when I was a kid, and you know, we had the channel, we would watch the game. I'm like, I'd rather watch cartoons, but anyway, the Cubs will be playing, and I remember there was always like a Ryan Sandberg, you know, or like some big name. Remember Carlos Zambrano, you know, with those teams, like, these teams really didn't make that a lot of noise, and you still have to have that player to actually have the people watch the game. Like, there's no seats, an impact stands. Player. Yeah, so I don't think he'll get traded, but never know if he does get traded. You heard it here first.
It'll probably be in his contract season if he does get traded, because if the Cubs are not going to be a playoff team, then Baez isn't going to want to re-sign with the Cubs, especially if they're not going to want to try to spend money like that. And because of Theo Epstein, he was that guy that signed these guys and traded for these guys so well, you know. He's the reason why the Cubs won the World Series in 2016, just because of the behind the scenes stuff that a lot of people didn't see. You know, trading for Rizzo and drafting Chris Bryant, drafting Javier Baez. Like there's so much that the average baseball fan doesn't see that Theo Epstein did. That we as real baseball fans, like really hardcore baseball fans, that we actually know about. So it's really going to be interesting to see what the Cubs can really do for the future. But yeah, going back to Javier Baez, I don't really see him getting moved anytime soon. I think that the Cubs would at least try to keep him. He's still pretty cheap. He's relatively cheap because he hasn't hit free agency yet. He's still working on that, the rookie contract that he originally signed. So I don't see them trying to move him at all until at least the season before he's going to become a free agent.
Well, I mean, we've said a lot of things about the Cubs. I know there's a lot of teams that are actually shredding salaries and trading off their pieces and doing things that they need to do to prepare for the 2021 season. And we just heard that Manfred said that get ready for spring training. It's going to start on time, and it's going to start in what was it, March? Pitchers report in 6 weeks.
Yeah, so, and they also Manfred also said prepare for 162 games. Exactly,
and that's something good for fans, something good for baseball players. I can't wait for that 162. We just got done with the 60-game season where we thought wasn't going to even happen, right?
See, and now we're going to be able to really see what these guys that excelled so well in the 60-game season can really do. Like, what's going to happen when Randy Arozarena plays 162 games? Yeah. Or what's going to happen when Shane Bieber can make his 22, 23 starts or more after his Cy Young season? What's going to happen with Trevor Bauer? He had this like amazing breakout season, lowest ERA in baseball in years, and after only starting maybe 12 or 13 games with the Reds. So it's going to be really interesting to see when these guys can actually make a few more starts, more than double the starts, right? Because they're probably in a regular season, they're probably going to make at least 30 starts if they stay healthy throughout the season.
Yeah.
So that's going to be what, like, the thing for me is I don't really count the individual stats from 2020 season just because it was such a small sample size, less than half of a regular season. So now it's going to be really interesting to see. We already saw these guys that excelled so well in a shortened season. So I want to see what these guys are actually going to do, if these guys are actually going to produce. Like the other guys that we were talking about in the previous episode about second base, Brandon Lau, Kevin Biggio, kind of having like these great seasons, who's ranked like number 3 and 4 or 4 and 5 on the second base list. What they can really do in 162 games. So I'm really
most of these guys, we haven't seen the full season. Like, we haven't seen the full season for Fernando Tatis. I know a lot of people saying, "Oh, he's going to get an extension on his contract and he's going to become the biggest Padre," or whatever. Yeah, I think you should hold off. I know we're talking Cubs, but they did trade to the Padres, right? So I think I think Tatis. For me, I think that the contract shouldn't happen until you get a full season from him, because
it really could go both ways, right? Because if the Padres sign him for 10 years like they want to do, and he says that he's not really willing to sign the 10-year contract because he might want to hit free agency after his 6 years of service.
Yes.
So if the Padres can lock him up for 10 years, I think that's really good for the Padres, because if he really does turn out to be this like amazing breakout star, Mookie Betts level, then it's really good for them, because then they get a little bit of a cheaper contract, right?
That's true. Yeah.
If you wait a little bit, it seems like the contracts are just going up and up and up just in the past couple of years. You got starting pitchers that only play once a week that are making $30 million a year or more.
That's true.
So I think that the Padres would be smart to lock him up right now, so that way they don't have to pay that heavier contract when they try to re-sign him, when he's closer to free agency.
Wow.
It might not be smart for him. I mean, it really could go either way, right? Because if he doesn't pan out, that 10-year contract is really going to work out in his favor. But then if he excels even better than expectations, then he's going to be missing out on an even bigger payday.
Well, hopefully he has a good agent on his side, because, if he had a good agent, he's going to tell him, "Hey, man, I want to wait. Give me 2 more years, and then in 2 years we'll talk." Because he's only been in the league 2 years, right? So
and he's going to hit arbitration soon too.
Yeah.
So when he hits arbitration, he could easily get, $15 million for that year,
Yeah.
depending on what he did the season before, right?
Unless he starts declining,
unless he starts declining, that's going to be the issue. So if he really believes in himself, it's better to wait a little bit.
Yeah.
But if he's kind of doubtful, if he doesn't believe in the stats that he produced just this past season, we kind of saw him like declining a little bit towards the end of the season, right?
Yeah,
but did. Like we always say, baseball is all about hot streaks and cold streaks. So he could just be a Bryce Harper type where he just goes on this amazing run and bats 400 for a whole month, and then the next month he bats under 200, and then at the end of the season he ends up balancing out around 280 with 35 home runs. So we'll see man. This guy's a very exciting guy to watch. And I'm going to be watching a lot of him because he plays in the same division as the team that I root for. Yeah. So it's going to be a fun season, man. I'm really hoping for this 162 games. Yeah.
Hopefully it does happen. And we just heard, like I said, it got confirmed that it is going to happen. But things could change in the from here till spring training. Anything else to add on the Cubs or Padres? I mean, I know the Cubs are trying to get rid of everybody. We already talked about that. Any other thing we need to touch on the Cubs?
I don't think so, man. I mean, one other thing also is Ian Happ, right? He was primed to be like the next big thing. I believe he was a first round pick, and he hasn't really panned out too much. So that's another guy that could possibly be traded. He's been in the league for like 3 years now.
Yeah, but I kind of forgot about him, to be honest. I remember him
because he was supposed to be a big thing. The way that he was, like the way that they thought he was going to.
Yeah, because I remember he was going to be a big deal in Chicago, and I forgot he was there.
Yeah.
So if I forgot, it doesn't mean I know everything, but he should be one of the top names out there. And when you said it, I'm like, oh yeah, he's still there. Yeah, I forgot about him. Yeah, I mean, yeah, hopefully the Cubs need to get it together again, because they need to have competition in the Central. I don't see the Central being something, a big top division.
Yeah, it seems like the NL Central,
I think it's the weakest,
kind of the weakest division in baseball right
now. Yeah. So,
and then you also have the AL Central, that's the second weakest division. It's like the only team that's really contenders over there. Well, they have the White Sox and the Twins, right?
Yeah.
And I mean, other than that, like the Indians, it seems like they're kind of giving up also.
Yeah, they just have pitching. They have pitching. They don't have.
They have really good starting pitching, and then they have Jose Ramirez. But other than that, like they lost Carlos Santana. They gave away Francisco Lindor. I don't see them making the playoffs this next season.
Well, that's it. Willpower and I gave you our opinion on the Cubs. Hopefully they do not dismantle the team, because I know that's something that's going to affect the whole Central. It's already the weakest division. But if they do stay, they could probably even make the playoffs with the team that they have. Go ahead and subscribe to our channel, or comment if you don't like our video. Send us a email or whatever you guys feel like is appropriate. I'm Carlos Baseball. This is Willpower, signing out.